Okay, we're ready to get going. Welcome everyone to our Guava webinar, Symantec Enterprise Vault Migration Tips and Tricks with Retain and Akaibu. My name is Sheldon Mills. I'm a marketing manager here at Guava. I'm here with Q Mangus, the Director of Product Marketing here at Guava as well. I just want to start off by thanking everyone attending this webinar and hope you benefit and get a lot of information from our presentation today. Today we're going to have a Q&A session addressing the most frequent questions we get regarding archiving system migration and how Retain and Akaibu work together to ensure that seamless archive migration. I'll be fielding a few questions and Q will be answering them. And for those who just joined us second late, Q is the Director of Product Marketing here at Guava. Like I said, we have a few questions we get a lot of that we want to go through. However, if you have any questions as we go through the webinar, please put them through the Q&A panel or the chat panel, and Q will be sure to address those. And if you go, let's see, on your screen there's just there should be a QA and also a chat. Either one of those works. Just put your questions in, and between myself and Q, will be sure to catch those and get those answered. Q?
Thanks, Sheldon. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for starting us off. Everyone, we're glad that you could be here today. We have some information to present, some great information for you. Figure that we should probably take about 40 to 45 minutes, depending on your questions. So if you have some questions, feel free to put those through. Possibly we could even go shorter, just depending on the level of participation. So we're excited to go, and we'll go ahead and get started with the questions.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Q, for that introduction. Let's just jump right into it then. So the first question we get all the time is, so what are some reasons that my organization may want to migrate off Symantec Enterprise Vault?
Yeah, so this is a good question. And this is one that we hear a lot of. You know, when we go out to events, when we're at trade shows, or when we're at other events, or when we're just talking to people, we find that organizations are on other archiving solutions, and they may see a need for a change. And so this particular webinar, of course, as you see, we're talking about Symantec Enterprise Vault specifically. And that question is brought up to us, you know, if I'm on a certain archiving solution, why should I change? And this could depend on your organization. But in the particular case of Enterprise Vault, I'm going to hit some reasons why many organizations may be looking to make that change. The biggest one is that Enterprise Vault, of course, has been around for a long time, and it's actually built on legacy technology. And what that means is that things have changed drastically in the past few years on what organizations are demanding that be archived and how it is archived. And Enterprise Vault is really a legacy technology. It was built primarily for email archiving, and then for other ways to archive, they actually acquired third-party products to archive those other types of communication, and that creates separate modules. So that can be difficult, right? Because now you're going to have a product that was built for one specific purpose with email archiving with these add-ons that were made for different types of communication. So many organizations have seen a need to make that change because of new demands. And I'll talk about that in this as well, because one of those demands is this ability to have social media archiving. And we know that things have changed in the marketplace, right? Many organizations have had a huge shift in the way that employees communicate. And you've probably experienced this in your organization. I'm pretty sure that you have, in the sense that your employees are communicating via social media. They're probably getting on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And how are you going to archive what they're saying? This is something that Enterprise Vault does, but it's a very difficult thing, meaning that it's a third-party, once again, a third-party module, and the administrator has to set parameters to pull that data into the archive. It's not something that's easy to do. It is a difficult thing. So with the fact that so many people are communicating and using social media, that's another thing that where Enterprise Vault is lacking, and it might be a good idea to move. Another one here coming along with that is the ability to monitor and filter social media and instant messaging. once again, this is the way that employees and organizations are communicating now. They're using instant messaging. They're using social media, and this is a good thing, right? We want our employees to be able to easily collaborate. Instant messaging makes that possible. Social media lets your employees communicate with your customers, with each other, and get the word out about your organization. It really helps. There's good things about it. However, with those benefits come risks. And so you want to be able to mitigate those risks. And that's where it's important to have a solution that doesn't just archive but also monitors and filters social media. And this is something that we see more and more of as organizations are demanding these kind of solutions. There are more products out there to help you monitor and filter. Moving along, we have this idea of mobile device archiving. So once again, there's a shift in the way employees are communicating. They're communicating using mobile devices. I would imagine that every one of you on this call has a mobile device that you use to access your business email, to communicate with employees, to communicate with customers. You're probably doing that on a daily basis. And if you're not, I would imagine people in your organization are. Now, this could be people bringing in their own devices and demanding that they access the network, and they want to use that to be able to communicate with customers. Or it could be a corporate-owned device, which is less common nowadays, but it is still something that is out there. So the idea is that your employees are communicating via mobile. How do you have oversight of that? Symantec Enterprise Vault does not give you that ability. It can't archive communications on Android or BlackBerry or iOS. And now you don't have oversight or auditing of that. Moving along, so I know there's a lot of information on this slide, but just be aware that this is some of the things to be aware of and that you need to know about if you're using Enterprise Vault right now and why you should possibly look at making that move. The next one is this real-time data delivery. You need to be able to quickly access data. Once something is archived, it needs to be immediately indexed and immediately searchable. This is very important, and this is something that's lacking. There's a lot of latency when it comes to the ability to access data once it's been archived. Next is this ability to access the archive itself. So Enterprise Vault only allows certain users to search and export and doesn't provide end-user access to the archive. Or if it does, it's very difficult, right? It's a client instead of having something that's a UI. And if your end users can't or won't access it, that's going to place burden on IT because now they're going to be going to your IT department for help with minor requests like just restoring an email. And if there's the need to be able to, have an open records request, e-discovery, or other litigation, you need to be able to grant other rights to other users. So a legal team, an e-discovery team, an auditor, they need to be able to access the archive as well. And Symantec makes that difficult. I kind of touched on the web access idea. Once again, Enterprise Vault is not web-enabled. You can only access it behind the corporate firewall. It's not something that can be easily accessed, on the road via web. Next is that's the idea, once again, of separate modules and a separate login, right? So you have difficult access. You have to log into separate modules to access the different types of data. So if you want to be able to access social media archiving, or instant messaging archiving, or email archiving, those are all different separate modules that you have to log in separately. And it's not easy to go back and search across the entire archive. That's something else to just be aware of. If you have to search your entire archive, Symantec requires that you have a third-party tool. Well, actually, it's not third-party anymore. They actually acquired that. It's called Clearwell. But you have to actually use Clearwell to be able to search the entire archive. Another difficult thing too, right? You have to have another solution on top of that to be able to search that whole thing. So, and then finally, we have this limited email platform support. Enterprise Vault only supports Exchange and Office 365. There's no support for Gmail. So once again, if you have that need, if you are using Gmail in your organization, you're going to have to make a switch as well. And furthermore, if you're using GroupWise, it supports it, but once again, that's a third-party solution. And then I kind of touched on this as well, that there's limited search and e-discovery tools. Nothing is built into Enterprise Vault when it comes to search and e-discovery tools. You have to use Clearwell to be able to search and perform e-discovery. So the idea here is that, depending on your organization needs, if you need to be able to have these other things, archiving of social media, of mobile, being able to have powerful e-discovery tools, be able to access the archive wherever and whenever, and grant rights to other people, you're probably in the situation where you need a change. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is some tips and tricks for how you can make that move. But as a precursor to that, and as the question is always asked, why do you need to archive, or why do you need to move your archive from Enterprise Vault? And here's your reasons.
Awesome, thank you. That's a lot of reasons. We get a question. I guess the next question is very specific, more to Enterprise Vault in particular. What concerns, do I have trying to migrate Enterprise Vault in specific?
Absolutely. So there's archive migration concerns with no matter what the archive system is, and it's very similar with Enterprise Vault. And this slide here kind of talks about how we'll talk a little bit more about this slide in just a moment. It hits on the how you can migrate and some of the features of a migration, but I'll also use this just to talk about some of the concerns. The first and foremost is how it's going to affect the business. You're going to have to if you're going to make a migration, what is it going to do to your day-to-day operations? How disruptive is it going to be? And there's a chance that when you make this move, that there's going to be some disruption in your business operations, and that's why a lot of people are hesitant to make that move. Think of the resources you're going to have to put towards a migration. Think of what it might mean if your users can't access their archive while you're making that move. That's something to consider. So that's one thing that you may have a concern of, is how it's going to disrupt business. The next thing would be making sure that all data is moved. That's a big thing that you should really be thinking about, and that would probably concern you, is this idea of, I'm making this move. I'm taking all my data and I'm taking it from one archive solution. I'm going to put it into another one. Am I going to be able to move everything over? Is all the metadata going to be there? Is every message going to be there? Can I easily access that data once it's moved? So that's something to be thinking about as well, and just know that that's a concern, that when you're making that move, you need to make sure that all information is moved over. We're talking all email, all the appointments that are archived, all the metadata. That's something to be thought of as well. The next would be, how long is the migration going to take? That's important as well, is to know and put resources and plan that out to know how long that's going to take. Next, you're going to have to be out there looking and seeing what the requirements of the new archiving system are. So that's another concern as well. Are you going to have hardware upgrades? Are you going to have to make a change there? Is it something that you're moving to the cloud? And then if you're going to do that, what the costs may be to make that move as well. So those are some concerns that you may have, once again, is how it's going to disrupt your business. Is all data going to be moved? How long is it going to take? What kind of requirements is there going to be for the new archiving system? Those are some things to take into consideration. There's obviously others, and it depends on your organization, but those are big ones to consider. Because if you know that you have to have all your data to make that migration, you need to be able to access that data, especially if you're ever involved in litigation or e-discovery. You need to be able to go back and find that information, especially if you're in a regulated organization, for however many years that you're required to do that. So that's something to be aware of, and those are some concerns.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to throw that out there once again. If anybody has any specific questions as to the why, and we're going to get into the how, but Hugh's given lots of reasons, but he could definitely go into depth on any particular question you might have. So please put those through if you have them. Well, let's lead this right to our next common question. So what can I do to make the migration seamless, make it easier, make it happen as best as possible?
That's a great question, and that is where I hit on the concerns that you may have, and what we're going to touch on, and this will kind of be the bulk of the presentation here, is how we can help you make that migration seamless. So what you start out with is we're going to talk about the solution that we've called Akaibu Evolve. So what we've done is here at Guava, we've partnered with Akaibu to help you make a migration seamless and easy. So to begin with, as you may be aware of, we do have an archiving solution called Retain, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But Retain is a great archiving solution to kind of mitigate, and it addresses all of those concerns that we were talking about before about why you should be migrating. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. But so you have the Retain Unified Archive. That's a great solution for your archiving needs. Then you have Akaibu Evolve. So these solutions work in tandem to make sure that you don't have these concerns, that all these risks are mitigated from when you make that transition. So first of all, I talked about this disruptive migration. What Evolve does, it lets you schedule migration tasks around your business hours and business critical needs. So you can actually do the migration at times that would not affect your organization. So you can prioritize certain groups and individuals depending on their needs. You can do it in off times. It's all built so that you can make it as non-disruptive as possible. Next, there's not any agents that you need to install. You don't have to put anything on the archive or the mail servers. It's all run in the background, so your users won't even notice that it's happening. It will just be migrated. Furthermore, we try and make it quick, right? We were talking about the need for speed, right? You need to be able to move that archive over as quickly as possible. So Akaibu Evolve actually has a parallel migration architecture, which allows you to, reduce bottlenecks and keep that data moving, because you can have multiple versions spun up so that you can move that data quickly and easily. Furthermore, you have intelligent metadata scanning. So we talked about that need to migrate everything, including the metadata. So what Evolve does is it calculates the optimal migration process for each item, and then it makes sure that the relationships and other data is preserved between the source and the target. And I have a few diagrams to show you in just a minute on how that's going to work. And then, of course, there's the absolute data integrity and fidelity. What it does is it communicates natively with the supported archive and mail platforms, meaning that that everything that is moved nothing is lost. And there's actually an audit as well. So there's auditing functions that allow you to fingerprint emails using what they call an MD5 hash algorithm for forensic integrity of transfer data and reliable evidence of continuous chain of custody. So what that means is that everything is moved over, and for those in regulated industries, everything is compliant, making sure that nothing is lost when everything is moved over. The other great thing, too, is that there's no altering of the archive. So when the migration is moved, your Symantec Enterprise Vault is not altered or deleted. So if you need to, you can always roll back. If something happens, you can roll back to your Symantec Enterprise Vault archive. Also, what's great is you can actually use staging servers to be able to move that over, and these servers can be backed up. So every step along the way, you can use these servers that can be backed up, and making sure you have a backup of that migration. So all along the way, you have, you're covered. And then once again, there's a complete and efficient migration. Akaibu Evolve makes sure that complex manual migration tasks are completed in a short time. You can do a one-to-one, many-to-one, or one-to-many mapping. So it's an auto mapping, making sure that source and target archives are done the way they need to be done. If you're going one-to-one, many-to-one, or one-to-many, that's all done intuitively, and it's done automatically. So let's move along here a little bit. So those are some of the things that are some of the features of migration. Some of the key benefits are that you'll have, because of what we talked about, you'll be able to have a quicker project turnaround, as I talked about. You'll be able to have that comprehensive scheduling, making sure that you can run tasks at the right time and it doesn't impact people's day-to-day use. And it also doesn't impact IT as much because they can do that in off hours. There's that intelligent workflow system. That'll make sure that migrations are performed simply and that all data is migrated and that nothing's lost. Some other features or other benefits as well is there's background bulk transfer of user data ahead of stub transformation. What it does is it makes you to be able to move migration in bulk. Really cool feature, benefit there. Then there's other statistical analysis. What's cool is that it has point-in-time statistical analysis to give you accurate real-time measurement of throughput and estimated job duration. So as you're going through that migration, you'll be able to see how quickly stuff is being migrated and how long it's going to take. And then what's great as well is there's real-point inspection that removes any need to freeze source archives ahead of migration and allows for continuous optimization of source and mail target systems. So it really makes sure that migration is quick and seamless. So let me just show you a few slides that talk a little bit about the architecture.
We actually did have one question come through asking about what systems can I migrate from? Not just eVault specifically. What other systems, or archive systems, can we do?
So some of the systems that you can migrate from, it's basically any archive system that you're on we could support, just depending on your needs. But some of the major ones, right? So Mimecast is one. Enterprise Vault, of course, we're talking about that. Barracuda. Some other ones as well, just to take note of, is Commvault. NetMail is one as well. So yeah, there's quite a number of archiving systems that we can migrate from. If you do have a specific one that you're looking at to migrate from, please feel free to put that through in the Chatter Q&A or shoot us a line, and we can make sure to check and see if that's the one that we can work with. But yeah, most of the major archiving solutions we can work with to migrate. So let's go through this really quick on just some of the architecture and the process of a migration. So here we've got a source mail platform and the target mail platform. Really, it's really cool because as you think about this, the mail in the archive exists in 3 separate locations. You've got shortcuts, email, and the archive mail. And it's split up by date. So depending on how it's set up, these 3 locations are split up by date. So depending on how your archive is set up, you have 1 to 3 years, 3 to 7 years, 7+ years. And of course, it's replicated across the organization, depending on your number of active and inactive users within the organization. So this gives you an idea of what your archive looks like, right? So it's split up by shortcuts, mail, and archive mail. So what happens is we have the migration process. There's a migration engine that moves the data from the source to the target. And there's a SQL server that tracks every move to make sure there's the full chain of custody so that nothing is lost. So during the migration process, there's a few things that happen. First, you configure the migration platforms, and then you set up a path between the existing source. So you set up this mapping profile. You'll schedule the jobs and schedule when they're going to happen. You'll set up the number of jobs and the batch data by user date and other filters. So as I was talking about before, you can prioritize different people, different teams, and you can set it at different times. And of course, then the data is moved depending on how you set that up and set up the jobs. And as you can see, everything is moved over to that new system. And once that's done, you can run the reports to make sure that everything was moved over, to make sure that nothing was lost, that that chain of custody was there, and that no data was lost. And then, of course, as I talked about before, there are times, depending on the size of your archive and how quickly you want things to happen, that you're going to want to run more than one job at a time. So you can run multiple jobs in parallel. So what you can do, all you have to do is you just spin up more servers, more eVault servers. Depending on how many you need and what your needs are, you can create as many servers as you want, and these jobs can be run at the same time. So as an example here, job 1 can take data from user 1, from years 1 to 3, while job 2 can take the data from user 4 for the year 7 plus. So this is all examples of how you could do this. This is all just depends on how you want your system to be set up. But the idea is that you can run things in parallel to make your transition, your migration smoother. And once again, the jobs don't have to be going to the same target. So if you're taking and you have your archive that's going to be moving Office 365 email from Office 365 to Office 365 or from Exchange to Office 365, it can move to different targets and it can be run at the same time. And then, of course, the speed depends on a number of factors. It depends on the source environment. I mean, this is pretty logical, right? It depends on how big the source environment is and how that works, how big your archive system is, what the environment's like. The next thing would be the quality of the Exchange or archive servers. And then, of course, the number and quality of servers running the jobs will affect throughput. And the backup and maintenance can also influence throughput. So as you're running those backups of the servers, that can affect throughput as well. And, of course, the state of the target environment as well, and the ability of the target servers to ingest data. So this is all things to consider when you're planning your migration, and this will all be things that eVault will take into consideration as you're doing that to give you an estimated time of how long that archive is going to take. So here's an example. eVault can be expected to move to about 2.5 to 3.5 terabytes per month. So that's the bottom line is that. Just so you know, that's about how long it's going to take. And then, of course, there's extensive control over shortcuts as well. What's great is during the migration, eVault will move the data first, and then it will address the shortcuts. And it can update the shortcuts in Outlook after the archive mail has been moved. So what's great there is that you can, those shortcuts that you have in Outlook to the archive will be updated so it looks seamless to your users. So like in this example, it will no longer point to Enterprise Vault. They will now point to Retain, to your new Retain archive. And then if you don't need shortcuts anymore, let's take and say that you're not using those in Outlook, you're not using an Outlook plugin, you're just going to give them access to the new Retain archive, Akaibu can delete those shortcuts. So here, once again, just to kind of finish up what I was talking about when it comes to the environment, is just here's some considerations to take into account as you're making that move, is what your Exchange servers or other servers look like, what your archive servers are, your storage, your permissions, your network capability, and your backup and maintenance. And then consider what we were talking about, right? How many migration engines you need, what your migration controller will look like, and then, of course, what your target environment is going to be. These are all things to consider, and of course, as you get into this process, if you need more information and you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we can be sure to give you more information about that. But just know that we do everything possible to make sure that your migration is quick and seamless, and that you can move to a better archiving solution with Retain.
Awesome. Thank you for that information. All around Akaibu and eVault. So that brings us to, our next common question. So why Retain? How does Retain help with migrations?
So what's great about Retain is, let's see, let me go to the next slide here. I won't touch on everything on this slide, but just know that what Retain does with migrations is it really helps in that archive system migration, because Retain is a platform agnostic archive, meaning that no matter what system you're using when it comes to the email, when you move your archive over, Retain is going to support that. And it's going to support that in one central archive that can be searched and you can perform e-discovery. So that's where Retain really helps with migrations, is you have evolve and then you have Retain. And when the data is moved into Retain, now you have a central archive that has all your old data in that archive that can now be accessed, and you can you can perform searches and do e-discovery, and then from here on out, you have an archive that is supported for any kind of electronic communication, for email, for social media, for mobile. That's why Retain helps with migrations. With that partnership with Akaibu, you'll be able to migrate, and with Retain, you'll be able to have a better solution that will now have built-in tools to be able to search and perform e-discovery.
So that brings me to what makes Retain different then. What is Retain's strong points?
So some of the things that really make Retain different is kind of what I was showing on the screen here. Is Retain is built on that latest technology. Just a little bit of the history with Retain. Yes, Retain was built originally with email archiving in mind. So it did start off as an email archive similar to eVault, but the way it was built made it very easy to be able to take and expand that into social media and mobile. So it is built on the latest technology for the way that it integrates with email systems, of course, and the way that it works with social media and mobile and instant messaging. So that technology allows us to be able to archive all social media, and it's a complete social media archiving. So any kind of communication that goes on within the network with social media, whether that's your corporate social media account, any end user social media accounts, as they're communicating, Retain will archive that. And Retain will monitor and filter social media and instant messaging. So as your users are communicating via social media, you can create policies that will prevent them from posting things that may be inappropriate, that may be sensitive, that you may not want to get out. You can create policies to do that. Create the ability to prevent bullying or harassment, those kind of things as well. And it's all done through the Retain social proxy. So traffic is routed through that. It's filtered and monitored. So now it's a proactive solution as well. Furthermore, the other thing that Retain has is the ability to archive mobile communication. Retain allows you to archive Android and BlackBerry, and then also archive on iOS via CellTrust. We've partnered with CellTrust. And what CellTrust does is it provides you a separate business phone number. It's an app that goes on the phone, and it assigns a separate business number to be able to call and to be able to text. So now your users can bring their own device, yet they can now communicate with their business communications via this separate app, and then that app allows for those communications to be archived as well. Further, you have immediate access and search of archived messages. So once a message is archived, it's immediately indexed and is quickly available. It's a near zero latency to be able to access that archived message. Furthermore, with what I was talking about with this unified archive, this is a great idea, and this is where Retain really shines. And that is, Retain has one central archive for all communication, all email, all mobile, all social media, all instant messaging, and even web searches are in one central archive. So now when you or an auditor or e-discovery or legal or even an end user needs to do a search, there's one location for one search. And when they do that search, it's all brought into one central archive. No matter what the communication is, if I do a search, it's going to be brought in. And that goes along with the powerful e-discovery tools. There's litigation holds. There's an audit trail. There's redact, strike through. So there's powerful search and e-discovery tools that are built in. And here's a little bit, once again, just as a quick view of all the things that are supported. For mobile, it's iOS, Android, and BlackBerry. For email, it's Exchange, GroupWise, Office 365, and Gmail. For social media, it's Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Yammer. For instant messaging, it's AOL, IM, Google Hangouts, Skype for Business, Link, Yahoo Instant Messenger, and then for search, you have Wikipedia, Yahoo, Bing, Google, and YouTube searches. So when your users are searching, you can actually monitor and filter what they're searching. So that's really what makes Retain different, is this idea of what it can archive and how it archives into one central archive.
Awesome, thank you. Just wondering if you could hit real quick. Let me check to see if there's any questions. If you could hit really quick the bullet points on the why of migrating off Symantec eVault, and I think that'll wrap it up.
Perfect. So the idea is, let me go back to that slide really quick. I want to hit on that. Apologize here. This will take me just a second. Could have probably done it another way. But here once again is the need for migration. To finish up, to just contrast what we were just talking about, you need to migrate Enterprise Vault because of that legacy technology, the lack of support for social media, the lack of archive access, and then the big thing is this separate modules and separate logins, right? You don't want to have those silos of data. You want to be able to have one central archive for all of your messaging. And that's where Retain shines. And that's why we've partnered with Akaibu to be able to allow you to make that migration so that you can move to a solution that is better, that works better for your needs, that archives all of your electronic communication. This is especially important for those organizations that are regulated. If you're in healthcare or financial or government, you need to be archiving all of this because the law mandates it. But it's also true for any other kind of organization, because what if you're involved in litigation or an e-discovery request? You need to be able to quickly and easily access that. And you don't want to have to be using all different tools for different things and having these silos of data. You want to be able to quickly and easily access it. And then even taking that a step further, with Retain, you have the ability to get insights into what's going on in your organization. You can access your data quickly, have that nearline data to where you can quickly and easily go back and see what the health of your organization is, how your employees are communicating, what's being said, and you'll have that oversight to be able to quickly and easily search and get to those messages. And that's why it's important to be able to move to Retain and have that solution to help with that migration. I'd encourage you to learn more about us. Feel free to visit us at guava.com to learn more about it. And if you want to try out Retain or do a test of how you can make a migration, you can download that at guava.com/download or contact us and we can get you more information as well.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and everyone will receive a link to the webinar recording, and so look for that email if there's a point you wanted to go back to or share it with somebody else. Thank you for your time and participation today, and encourage everyone, like you said, to visit our YouTube page, youtube.com/GuavaTV, and you can access other webinars and other videos about Guava, and check out the website, guava.com. Thank you, and thanks for joining us on our webinar today.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you on the next one.